Welcome into sportsbookreview.com. I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
And this is the college football show, week 5 of the offseason. And yes, we know there's not really an offseason. We get that. We understand. But it's offseason for FBS. This is week 1 of the FCS. We're going to go through some of the big games this weekend, the games that you can actually watch. Because if you tried to watch McNeese State and Tarleton State over the weekend and didn't have one of these crazy logins, you were out of luck. Out of luck, pretty much. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some stuff to pay attention to for the FCS season, how the playoff is going to go, etc. Because you guys are probably degenerates like we are, and you like to gamble on things, whether you know anything about them or not. So we're going to try and help you out with that. So with that said, go ahead and let you know we would like for you to go ahead and hit that like button for us. It's right down there. It's a little thumbs up button. Do that for us, and make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Of course, we do this every week. But once we get closer to the season, we're going to be doing a lot more stuff, a lot more previews, et cetera, et cetera. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you head over to sbrpicks.com/NCAAF, and that'll be the best way that you can find us. That's got all of your college football gambling needs right over there in one sweet spot. A lot of news to get to today. Let's go ahead and do that. Oh, by the way, if you guys would like to jump in on the comments, definitely do that. We want to hear your opinions on the show. Tell us what you think about the different topics for sure. Let's start off today. Now, this is, we're recording on Monday, February 15th. I think the biggest topic of the day would have to be Gus Malzahn has taken the Central Florida head coaching job. Chris, before we get into anything, I want to go ahead and get your thoughts on that right now.
Yeah, I think it's a really good hire. I said if I got to play athletic director there's 2 names that I would have called. It would have been him and it would have been Tom Herman. And I would have waited before I got an answer from either one of them. I think they're both pretty the same in my mind. And I like the hire. I think he's going to do really good there.
I tend to agree. Now, they hired Arkansas State athletic director Terry Mohajir,
who Gus has a relationship with, right?
Yes. So they crossed paths at Arkansas State. Gus was only there for 1 season. Mohajir was brought in right in the middle of that.
I was just about to say, he's not the guy that hired Gus, but he was there while Gus was there a little.
Correct. And Gus, again, was only there for 1 season, and then he went to Auburn right after. But he is the one that hired Brian Harsin from Texas before Harsin ended up going to Boise State the next year. And then he ended up hiring Blake Anderson, who was there for quite a while. And he just made the hire of Butch Jones at Arkansas State. So he's had a pretty good hiring record. Basketball, they haven't had to make a lot of changes. I believe he was there with John Brady. I don't even remember how that's going. I know that they've been somewhat successful in basketball because I have bet on them quite a bit, and they've been all right. But he has a good track record. They have won a ton of conference championships in all of their sports in Jonesboro, Arkansas. So I think this was a pretty good hire for AD as far
I do too.
As far as the coaching hire goes. Gus Malzahn, I do believe this is a home run hire for somebody like Central Florida, right? And that's not to say that Central Florida is any less than anybody else, but this is still a G5 school who cannot pay the same as the P5 school.
Yeah, they don't have the TV money.
Right.
As G5 schools go, I believe this is the best G5 school job in the country. I don't really count BYU. And I still think this is better than BYU, although due to the religious aspect, they get to recruit guys that are 25 years old, that are just bigger, stronger, and more mature than 18-year-olds coming out of high school.
Agreed.
And so I kind of throw that out a little bit. But yeah, I think this is the best G5 school in the country, job-wise.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the recruiting base is absurd. They've got the biggest alumni base.
Recruiting base, tons of money in that area. Now, they don't have funny money, TV money like the SEC's got, like the Big Ten's got, like the ACC and the Big 12 and the Pac-12. Like, they don't have that kind of TV money. But money that can be generated from a fan base, man, they're up there with just about everybody else.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, they are. And that's not to say that in time they can't be up there, because
that's right.
We all know how this sport works. I mean, everything is cyclical. The only question that I had here was Gus Malzahn just got paid $20 million to sit at home. It's a mindset question, basically. And you and I have been back and forth through text about this before we hopped on to record. And it's, okay, is Gus going to be fired up and want to win conference championships and want to, be the best every season? Is he going to go head first into trying to recruit, all that kind of stuff? Or is this basically going to be an extension of what Josh Heupel was, which was, we can out scheme pretty much everybody. We're already going to have a lot of talent anyway because of what's already here in Florida. We don't even have to try that hard and we're going to be pretty good. Is that going to be the same thing, or is it going to be what we were talking about? Is he going to go head first into this and try and win conference championships every year?
Well, yeah, I think he's going to do that, but I think you can do that and be yourself. If you're not a recruiter, you can't fake that, okay? If you're not a good salesperson, you can't fake that. And I don't think he's going to be any different than he was at Auburn. But I challenge you on the mindset question all the time, because these people are highly competitive individuals. They're far more competitive than you, me, or the regular public would ever be. All right. So to question their mindset, I feel like challenges the fact that they want to be there. Now, every now and then we get to a year where you have a guy like a Bobby Petrino, who is basically surrounding himself with his family and friends, and he doesn't want to work anymore, and he just doesn't give a shit. And that you got to fire that guy as soon as but you find that out throughout the course of a season. It doesn't take long. You lose the locker room, you lose the other coaches, even some of them being, friends of yours or worked with you for a long time. The loyalty goes away quickly when they see you don't care.
Well, that's
so I don't know how you question a man's mindset, quote unquote, without saying, do you think he just got paid a lot of money and so now he doesn't care? Because I think he's going to try to win every damn game they play.
I would tend to agree with you. We have seen this from an Auburn coach in the past, though, and that was Tommy Tuberville. He went to Texas Tech, was not very successful there, and parlayed that into the Cincinnati job.
But that means Tommy Tuberville wasn't a very good coach. This is the difference: is Tommy won at Auburn because of the machine and the system in place at Auburn that could get talent, right? Then he went to Texas Tech where that machine's not there. And then he went to Cincinnati where that machine's not there. And he failed at both those places. This is the problem. And Tommy was a recruiter. He just wasn't a good coach. And therein lies.
Tommy was a good coach at Ole Miss. I mean, he turned that into the Auburn job, right? He replaced Terry Bowden. And
the game obviously had changed so much from the time you're talking about 10, 12 years went by from the time he went to Auburn, or for the time he was at Ole Miss and built that to what it was, and to the time he left and went to Texas Tech.
Oh yeah, to Texas Tech. No, absolutely, it's different. But
so the game had changed. Tommy didn't.
Gus Malzahn has been around for a while. Has he been able to adapt to what's new? Because all the stuff that he was successful with early on, it's the same stuff that he was on the front line of, right?
Yes.
He brought it into the sport. So that's what I'm curious about. We've seen it happen before. I do think that he can be successful. I just am curious what it's going to be like with him. Is he going to be vengeful? Is he going to want to go out and prove everybody wrong? Or is it just, you know what, I've got a bunch of money in the bank and they're paying me and it's really nice in Orlando, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but the problem is if he does that, Central Florida's the job where if you do that a couple of years, you're going to get fired.
Oh, yeah.
They realistically should win 10 games a year every year. This is not Auburn where you have to play Georgia and Florida and Alabama every year. That doesn't happen. And so, yeah, you got to play Memphis and you got to be able to beat Memphis. And yes, you got to play Cincinnati. And at some point in time, you need to find a way to beat Cincinnati. You need to find a way to beat Tulsa. Things that Heupel struggled with. And nobody really did consistently because Frost wasn't there long enough to say he did it consistently. So can you do those things and can you be at the top of the heap in the conference every year? Yeah, I think he absolutely can do that. I think he's a really, really good coach. You know who I think he's a lot like, by the way? If you look at his resume and if you look at the schedule that he's played, okay, all right, strength of schedule, the teams that he has played, he's no different than Brian Kelly, and we all think Brian Kelly's a top 5, top 10 coach in the country. The difference is he has wins over Alabama and Georgia, things Brian Kelly does not have. All right,
true.
So we all think Brian Kelly I think he's Probably, I mean, this is just opening in my head, and I haven't gone down the list of it yet. I think Brian Kelly's in the conversation for top 5, without question, a top 10 coach in the country. And we all kind of think Gus Malzahn, for the most part, he's looked at like a punchline. But switch teams and let him be up there at Notre Dame. Now I think Brian Kelly's a better recruiter than him, and you have to be to get the talent he's gotten at Notre Dame. But X's and O's, and when you I think the talent level at both those schools are pretty close to even. All right.
Yeah.
When he plays Alabama, he's got a better shot at beating Alabama than Notre Dame has ever had. And I love Notre Dame, and I love Brian Kelly. This is not crapping on him. I am trying to boost up Gus in this and let people know this is no joke, man. The expectations at Auburn are ridiculous and foolish. I think Gus wanted out of there. I do think Gus started to do some things that he has never done before and will never do again, because he was just done with trying to appease people. He just finally got to a point where he said, you know what? You want it run this way? We'll run this way. You want Bo Nix as your quarterback? I've seen quarterbacks, okay? And I had these other guys on the roster that I went out and I recruited them, all right? But Bo Nix is a legacy. And you want Bo to play? Hell, let's play Bo. And our other 2 guys transfer, and our other 2 guys are far more successful than Bo could ever be. What am I supposed to do with that as the head coach? Ain't a damn thing I can do about that, right? It's either I start this kid that's not very good or not as good as it's not a true meritocracy. I either start the kid that's not as good as the best kid on the team, or I get fired. So you know what? I'm going to appease the masses, and I'm going to do the best I can with this kid. Okay, I couldn't do very well with him. So now I'm going to bring another coach in that's coached kids more like him in the past. And maybe he can get something out of him. Nope, he couldn't either. So we all get fired. That's fine. Like, when you look at the situation that happened around Bo Nix and what happened at Auburn and the quarterbacks that left there, like, was he really bad at recruiting? Like, if one of those other quarterbacks that transferred away had stayed, how much better would Auburn have been? Because you and I both agree it took me a while to get there, mainly because you criticize Auburn so partially. I have a hard time believing your criticisms when they're valid, right? Like, that's a thing that happens. And you're an Alabama fan. That's fine. Like, my criticisms of Bama players is unfair. And there's going to be times where I'm going to overly criticize some of them. Sometimes I'm going to be right. You're not going to know when I'm right because I do it so much. Right. So those biases are there. I was late to the party of believing Bo could play. But what do you do as a head coach where your job is tied to this legacy kid that's not the best player on the team?
There's nothing you can do. Gus Malzahn was in trouble to begin with because of the booster situation at Auburn. He won't have to deal with that at Central Florida.
No.
Maybe that's what attracted him to the job. Like, maybe I can do this without having both of my.
I don't think it's a maybe, man. I think he's going to be real good. I really do.
Yeah. But like I said, a lot of up and comers in the AAC, and that's what I'm curious about now.
Well, no, it's not going to be a cush job by any means.
Right.
I think Memphis is getting better. Memphis just had the best recruiting class it's ever had, ever. Like that's something impressive. I think Houston is just going to get better. I think they're in year 3 of the Hogo experiment. So that's a thing,
SMU had their best recruiting class.
I love Sonny.
3 decades.
Until somebody pulls Fickle away, Cincinnati's going to be a monster to deal with.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That's the thing. And if Tulsa continues to grow and get better, you don't want to play them. So this is not a joke conference. There aren't a lot of conferences that have 5 and 6 teams at the top.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, anybody can win this conference year in and year out. And Gus Malzahn, he gets himself a pretty good gig. I think
it's a great job for him. I think it's a great hire for them. Anybody who's a Central Florida fan that's disappointed, who in the hell else did you think you could get? Because I think this is a home run.
I think it is too. I think Tom Herman would have been as well. But
I do too. I think they're the same guy, by the way. I think they were, but we've compared Texas and Auburn to be in the same school with the same booster problems over and over and over for the last decade. You and I have been going about this.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Let's go ahead and talk. Well, by the way, for anybody that wonders why we are doing it through Zoom today, we are dealing with winter weather. How many inches of snow do we have, Chris, right
Well,
now?
I don't know. I've been outside in it all morning because I'm a moron who's decided to crank the smoker up at 6 a.m. this morning. But I mean, it's on my back deck. I've accumulated. It's at least 5.5 to 6 inches up my boot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I mean, that's a real thing, and it's coming down hard. We live in Mississippi, guys.
Yeah.
We are from the South.
That's what I was going to explain.
So my wife's family lives in Cleveland. All right. Now I've gone to Cleveland a lot during winter. I was just up there January 30th for a wedding. And let me tell you the difference of why we can't get, like, people make fun of Southerners for not getting out and everything shutting down when this happens. We don't have snow plows and we don't have salt trucks. They don't exist down here. And so if a couple of inches of ice, sleet and hail fall one day, and then the next 2 days you get 5 to 8 inches of snow and it's still snowing and you have nothing to take it off the road, it's not possible to drive.
Yeah. We are just stuck in the house for
this is not
a week.
I'm really good at driving in snow. No, you're really good at driving in snow when the plow comes and knocks it down and they throw salt down.
Yeah. But there's none of that here. I believe that our city actually rents salt trucks from the big city that we're next to. We're right next to Memphis. So
I don't think Memphis has salt trucks. That's not salt they're putting down. It's some type of liquid
salt and sand. They've got salt and sand trucks, but they've only got like 8 snowplows. But it's because it's been so crazy, they have not been able to come down here to do it. So that's why it's been.
Well, I've seen videos from Memphis, and those roads don't look any different than ours.
Oh yeah,
they haven't been plowed, they haven't been driven on, and they haven't been salted at all. So
it is tough stuff. So that is why we're Zooming today instead of in person. But next week, hopefully, we'll be back to normal. You know, doing the same thing. I like doing it in person a little more.
I do too.
But either way, we're getting this thing out to you. We got some more to discuss, of course. Let's go ahead and talk about Matt Campbell. Signs an extension with Iowa State. He will be there at least through 2028. That is 8 years. It's not an 8-year extension. He was already on under contract through 2025. Add an extra 3 years to it. On top of, obviously, a little bit of a pay raise, whatever else, they are giving him another $3 million for, quote-unquote, salary staff enhancements. Basically raises for his staff, which is a big-time thing.
Well, that's the most important thing.
I love the idea of a coach that is rumored for every big job, every NFL job, every, all these gigs that are coming up. Oh, he's going to be the next Michigan coach when Harbaugh leaves. Oh, he's going to go to Texas when Herman gets fired, right? Well, he didn't go to Texas. He hadn't gone to Michigan. He's still at Iowa State. He's going to stay and try and build this thing, and I absolutely love it. Bobby Bowden could have left Florida State at one point to go to Alabama. And then what would Florida State have been? Because he built that program from the ground up. Frank Beamer built Virginia Tech from the ground up. What if Matt Campbell actually stays in Ames, Iowa, and builds Iowa State into a perennial contender?
So that's a sweet story, and that's a nice what if. Okay, but guess what? He wasn't ever rumored by any NFL coverage for any NFL opening. Not a single one. Okay. That was college football guys saying, would he leave for the NFL? But they never called him, or it never got reported out that they were trying to interview him. Okay. Maybe they did. Texas was no way on earth going to hire somebody within their conference. They just weren't, because they feel like that's reaching down to take little brother's thing. And if little brother's doing it better than us, then that's not okay. Okay. Michigan hadn't come open yet. That Notre Dame job hadn't come open yet. Okay. This is not necessarily mean he's going to be there for 8 years. It's great for Iowa State fans to have a little sense of security, but at no point in time were you going to fire him.
Well, no.
So all this does is it makes it harder to hire him away. It makes it more difficult for a school to steal him away, or an NFL program, but it doesn't mean they can't or won't, because those other schools are substantially bigger. And
how many different schools do you think that would be big enough for him to leave for?
I think I named the 2.
So because he's a Midwestern guy, like he was at Toledo before.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming to the South because he doesn't recruit the way you have to recruit in the South, to my knowledge. So I don't think he's coming down south, and I don't think there's another Big 12 job he would want because they're all going to be in deep South.
Yeah.
I think it would be a Big 10 job, and I think it would be a higher end Big 10 job or Notre Dame, whichever one assume. And while they're associated more with the ACC, they're more of a Big 10 school.
And this
It's
is
going to
not-
have to be a massive job. It's going to have to be a massive job with a huge pay raise.
He was born in Ohio, and this is not somebody that his alma mater is calling him back or anything like that. He played at Mount Union in 1999 through 2002, and he went and coached as a GA at Bowling Green, and then he was OC at Mount Union. He was at Bowling Green for another couple of years. Then he went to Toledo, worked his way up until he was the head coach, and now he's at Iowa State. There is nothing that's calling him anywhere in particular.
No, it would be a historic program. That it's one thing to build something from nothing. It's another thing to take something that's been broken but used to be perfect.
Yeah.
No,
and
that's the difference of, and if he reaches a pinnacle, so let's say he continues to build what he's building and he makes it to several Big 12 title games. And let's say he eventually wins a couple of them. And let's say he gets into a couple of playoffs, but he just gets smashed by your Alabamas or your Clemsons. Yeah. At some point in time, he's going to say, I have to go to a bigger school to compete with those guys. If I want a ring, which I don't know that a ring, I think that's everybody's goal, but I don't think that's everybody's drive. Because I think if you've been in college sports long enough, there's some schools that can win it and some schools that can't. And while you go out and say our goal every year is to win all of them, some schools just know that's not realistic.
You're 100% right.
I would love for him to stay there. This is not me crapping on Iowa State and hoping that he leaves. No, just understand this. All of these coaches' contracts are written on toilet paper. Okay. They could be thrown away at any minute, at any time. It doesn't matter.
You are correct about that.
If this was the NFL, then I would say he's staying there because those contracts are legit. They can fire you, but they have to pay the whole thing out, and they can't, like nobody else can come overpay for you. Like they would have to basically trade for you, give compensation.
Yeah, so draft picks, players, whatever.
Like it would have to. It's a big deal for a coach to move while under contract. So
this is true. I do, as a college football fan, as a just basic fan of the sport, I like the idea of having another Frank Beamer, another Bobby Bowden, somebody.
Oh, I do too.
Could be a life.
And I don't somebody to give some competition to your Texas and your Oklahomas. Yeah. Somebody to make those teams squirm instead of letting Oklahoma get real strong and moonwalk their way to an undefeated season. And then therefore, because they have an O and a U on them, they get led into the playoffs and then they get beat by 40. Like I'm tired of that.
Like Bill Snyder had Kansas State at that level for a while. And then obviously you've had other Big 12 schools that have, jumped up here and there. But it's not so much just in the Big 12.
Well, I mean, who was the big, I can say, like the humongous fat guy at Kansas that got fired that had them at number one in the country and was competing to win the Big 12 for a couple of years?
That was Mark Mangino.
That was it.
And he ended up getting fired because of
he said some things you can't say.
Yeah, right. But it was more to do with like complaints from the players and just a bunch of.
But I think it was all race related.
I think so. It was. Hold on, I'm looking it up now.
I know I know he said some horrible things to St. Louis, and I don't know. I don't remember. I couldn't even remember the guy's name, much less remember what happened exactly. So I'm not downplaying or over exaggerating it. I don't remember. I just know he got fired for it.
It was following allegations of mistreatment of players. Yeah. So I mean, but he was 3-1 in bowl games. I mean, Mark Mangino for sure had Kansas.
He got Kansas to number one in the country.
That's absurd. And in the same season, Gary Pinkel had Missouri at number 2. Like that's 2007 was
Missouri. Yeah, Missouri was the peak of football.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Moving on off of that, let's talk about some blue bloods. Let's talk about some big names, and that would be Florida and Notre Dame, who have scheduled a 2031 and 2032 home and home matchup. Now, the question initially is, why are we still doing this? And obviously there's been other ones that have been scheduled in the meantime and all that. We get that. But this past season, 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, showed us you can make these games happen very quickly. You don't have to schedule them out 11, 12 years in advance. Why are we still doing it? Chris, do you have the answer?
No, I don't have the answer, and it's sickening. It drives me insane. The chances of anybody being on staff at these schools, from school president down, chancellor, AD, anybody still being associated with either of these schools when these teams play is probably 6%. All right.
Yeah.
I'm just done with it. Like, why? You're signing a contract that somebody else has to eat.
Yes.
No.
I
get you can't do it the next year sometimes, whatever. But these teams all have a couple of pay for wins on their schedule. Yeah. Pay those guys $300,000 to go kick rocks and get another check from a different school. And you can sign this for 2 years from now or 3 years from now. This is not that hard, to where at least the incoming freshmen on this team, and there's a really good chance like the head coaches might still be there in 3 years.
Yeah, the guys that are going to play in this game are what, 6, 7, 8.
I was just about to say
9 years old.
Yeah, they're all in elementary school.
That's absurd. Absolutely absurd. So here's
elementary school, not even like middle school starting to play football.
Right. Here's my thought process on this, though, because when you look at, obviously when this popped up, you and I talked about this a little bit last week. I looked immediately at the schedule and thought, okay, Florida, their non-conference schedule is for 2031. When I went and looked, it's at Texas, Arizona State at home, at Notre Dame, and then Florida State at home. That's their non-conference schedule, along with having to play LSU and Georgia. And depending on the year, they could play either Auburn, Texas A&M, or Alabama, whoever it is, right? The schedule was all
10 years from now. We don't know that Georgia's any good.
Right, but we don't know.
We don't know that LSU's any good in 10 years from now.
We don't know
that.
Any of it is good. So
we don't know,
So my thought process
here, Tennessee might be a national power by then. Josh Heupel might have just turned them around.
It's entirely possible.
Like, but here's the thing. We don't know. We think that like Herm Edwards won't be the coach at Arizona State. So I got to think that Arizona State game is not going to be as big of a deal.
Well, we don't think so, but who knows, right?
Man, it's a decade from now. You think Herm's still going to be there? Or you just think he built something that somebody else could take over?
I think that he could build something that somebody could take over and turn it, because Arizona State has always been pretty competitive, right? Regardless of coach, they've always been pretty competitive.
Definitely the better of the two Arizona jobs. I don't know about competitive. I mean, are they top 3 all the time in the, in the South, since the South has been a thing? I don't know. There's only 5 conferences there. Or six conferences. So 6 games.
So here was my thought process on this, right? The schedule is pretty ridiculous in 2031. Yeah. And we've seen more of these Power 5 schools scheduling these games
on paper right now. Because what if Florida State's the exact same as Florida State is right now? Like nobody's afraid of that, and you all want to play them because somebody still thinks they're good, but they're not, and so you get an easy win, and you don't shell out a couple $1 million to some little school, and that game gets on national TV, and you get to kick the crap out of somebody. Like,
we've got Georgia and Alabama that both have home and homes against Ohio State, Alabama and Notre Dame, Alabama and Texas. All these big name programs, right? LSU is doing the same thing with UCLA, with so forth and so on. All the big name schools are scheduling each other out so that there are name opponents on the schedule. This is what the ADs are saying, so that there are name opponents, so that they can actually convince people to come to the game, the stadium, right?
I love it.
The game. We both love it because we like going to games. I mean, we've done it every year. That's what we continue to do.
But I also like watching football, Gary. Right. And I don't like watching? I don't like watching Alabama play Kent State. I don't like watching LSU play McNeese. Like, I won't watch those games. And yes, 1 out of every 4,000 might be Appalachia State, Michigan. That might happen. What are the chances that I'm on that game at that time, or that game is even televised when it's happening?
Very little.
Very little, right?
Right. So here's what my thought process was. Maybe they know something that we don't know, right? Because the way that it's been so far through the first 6 years of the playoff, or 7 years, whatever it is, you have to have basically 1 loss or 0 losses in that loss column in order to get into the 14 playoff. Like, they have not had a 2-loss conference champion get in. They've had a 1-loss non-champion get in. That has happened multiple times, but it's basically about the loss column, right? Do you think, because they're scheduling all of these non-conference games, these big-time tilts, that they are moving towards, in 2025, that's when the playoff contract is up, they're going to expand. We all expect expansion, right, to 8 teams. Do you think we're going to get auto qualifiers?
No,
Champions get in automatically.
I would like to see that, but I don't. Listen, you're asking me to think the NCAA is going to make a right decision. No, I'm not trusting them, and I'm also not trusting these
NCAA. That's the big
whatever these presidents,
but this
these
is
athletic directors. No,
right,
I don't think that, and also don't think any of these ADs can see or reading the tea leaves 10 years from now. I don't think the Florida athletic director right now is making this decision based on that decision. Now, those conversations might be had already, and he might know when this contract is up, they're going to go to 8. He might know that is gospel and it's going to happen. That's still not his motivation for this because he's not going to be there in a decade.
Agreed. Although he could be. Scott Strickland, of course, just got the Florida job a couple of years ago. He's the one that actually brought Dan Mullen with him over from Mississippi State. Now, he had Jim McElwain for a bit and whatnot, but yeah, he brought Dan Mullen over from Starkville. And remember, Scott Strickland was on the college football playoff committee this season. So that's why I'm wondering, maybe these people know something that we don't, and it is going to be.
Well, I don't know that all those people in that committee know anything about what's going to happen when this contract is up.
You're probably
because they sure as hell don't seem like they watch the games half the time and know what's going on within college football when they're trying to pick this year's champion. So
if I were the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and the Big 12, et cetera, I would certainly be pushing for an automatic qualifier.
Well, yeah, the Pac-12 and the Big 12 are the two that have to do that.
Yeah.
The ACC, I think if anybody can come through with a 1 loss, but the win over Clemson, or Clemson continues to just go undefeated, we've just made up our minds that it doesn't matter their competition. We're just going to let them in every year because they're Clemson and they're good enough. Ohio State, I think, is always going to have the right competition. I think if you win the Big Ten with 1 loss or less, you should go. I think, and you almost have to have the Ohio State screw job like Penn State got, but they had 2 losses that year, right? Or was it just the 1?
Penn State had 2 losses. One,
so that's the reason they got the screw job. But like a 1-loss Big Ten school, a winner, a 1-loss SEC winner, and a 1-loss Clemson or ACC winner, as long as you beat Clemson, I think they're all getting in. The other 2 Power 5 are the only 2 that need a qualifier.
Yeah. In this situation, Penn State would have made it over Ohio State that season. And, yeah, I mean,
Ohio State would have gotten in one of those 8 spots, though.
The issue is it might look bad if Florida were to lose 2 games in that non-conference slate, right? They lose to Texas, they lose to Notre Dame, both on the road, and then they lose to LSU, but they beat Georgia, and then they go win the SEC championship. That's a 3-loss SEC champion that is now in the playoff. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't be one of the best teams in the country.
That's right.
I mean, that's the way it goes. So I am looking forward to seeing what this means, and if all this scheduling mayhem that's going on is actually pointing us to something bigger that's going to happen in the next few years. The next topic that we want to get to before we discuss the FCS Week 1 stuff, and we won't keep everybody for too terribly long today on these, but I am going to dig into some of the games. Oregon quarterback Tyler Shough enters the transfer portal as a graduate transfer. Chris, he's got 3 years of eligibility remaining. And I was a little bit shocked. He started all 7 games this year for Joe Moorhead's new offense.
And they were good.
Yeah, 65% completions, 13 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. They were 4-3 this year, I believe. They won the Pac-12 championship. He was replaced in the bowl game at multiple points by Anthony Brown, who was the graduate transfer quarterback from Boston College. Now, Anthony Brown has said that he is coming back next season to play for Oregon. He is going to be there again next year, but he was beaten out all year. by this kid. So, and there's also a kid that's coming in. I forget his name already. Ty Thompson or Ty, something like that. That's a really high rated recruit at quarterback. Does Tyler Shough just not believe that he's going to be able to win this job back? Or I don't understand the point of this. And my God, it kind of cost Oregon a little bit of practice time here because they could have been using this season to prep for what could be a big 2021, right?
But hang on, that's not on them. You know
agreed.
me. I'm never faulting the kid that wants to leave. All right. Listen, he did everything he was supposed to do, and he was the best quarterback for the job, and he won the conference championship. And he started every game. He was better than the other guy every game. At some point in time, that guy's only got 1 year of eligibility. I got 3. Who's more valuable to the program? Now, if you're going to bring somebody else in, I got to compete against them. That's fine. But if you're constantly pushing other people to the top of the list, and I don't know why they would do this. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to get on somewhere where he can start at least the next 2 years and not have to play this game.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right.
At some point in time, the team's got to show you. I'm all about competing. Okay, I'm all about competition, but you can't keep, like, if you have a guy that's the guy, like, you going after a grad transfer is telling me you're trying to replace me, and I'm all about getting better. If you know that grad transfer is substantially better than what you got, I'm fine with that. But if he's the same as what you got, you don't ruin the relationship for the same thing.
Yeah, no. And so Brown came in from Boston College, and I thought that he was going to win this job outright before last season. And he flat got beat out.
He just got beat. Can you imagine why they played him in the bowl game? You think it was just to get reps?
Possibly. I mean, they were kind of getting housed by Iowa State in the Fiesta Bowl. So, when they couldn't get anything done on offense, especially
just try something different.
They were just trying something different, I believe. Because
but I'm gonna tell you this: what if he says, "I know I can't win a championship in the Pac-12. I have seen this product, and I'm watching these other schools, and everybody else is getting closer than us."
Yeah,
I'm going to go play somewhere where I can try to win a title. I got 3 years. I had 3 years to build around me.
That's and I mean, Alabama's replacing their quarterback. Ohio State's replacing their quarterback. Clemson's already got their quarterback.
Yeah.
Georgia, he's got 1 year left with JT Daniels. If he wanted to go down to Georgia, he could probably do that. This is going to be interesting to see what he does. Now, obviously, he could take his name out of the portal at any point. He is a grad transfer.
I mean, hell, he could go to Iowa State.
He could Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy still has 1 season left.
I was about to say, that guy feels like he's been in college football for 10 years.
A long time. So, very, very long time. Yeah, no,
but you know me, I'm always going to take the player side in these things. With rare exceptions, I'm usually going to take the player side in these things because the players get so little in this college football deal.
That's
now when the day and time comes where they start getting contracts, then we're having a different conversation. Then we're having a different deal,
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. I'm curious. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. Obviously,
so me saying this
in the process.
I know you're not wanting to go long, and I know you want to hit some of this FCS stuff.
Oh yeah, that's good.
But I just brought up contracts. What I think the transfer portal is going to slam shut once name, image, and likeness goes through, and these guys can get. Because what if you're a local car dealership or you're a big brand, and you sign a kid in a local regional market, but you sign him for a 3-year deal. Or let's say you sign him for a 4-year deal and he goes to the NFL. So now you've got an NFL player on the cheap on a good contract. Like, that guy's he's not leaving your region and going somewhere where you don't have stores, No. You got a contract, buddy. You don't get to just break this contract because you want to go play closer to home.
That's an interesting idea.
Now, the only people that would get those types of contracts would be the stars coming into, but that's a quarterback, right?
Oh yeah.
Those are only ones. Like, no other player almost is going to get a 4-year deal from a local regional team because they don't know how good you're going to be.
Well, and this kid would not have gotten one of those 4 years.
Maybe, probably not. But you know what I'm saying, though, right? Like, what if? Because because I'll tell you this, if I had the money to throw around in advertising, if I had a huge advertising budget, I would go get, if Memphis got a big 5-star recruit, okay, or Ole Miss got a mega 5-star recruit quarterback, something like that.
Okay.
When I went to make him his offer, his deal for a contract, I would try to offer him a multi-year deal, because the bigger his star gets, the better he plays, the more expensive he's going to be. But I got him on this deal to sign early. And if you're the school, you want that, because
that's an interesting
because this boy can't transfer, because now he's legally obligated, or he's just got to pay me back all my money. All of it.
That's a very valid point. A lot of people have not thought about this side of things. Now, I would imagine there are a lot of places that are.
I'm gonna bet most of these people don't sign long contracts. I'm gonna bet.
I'm
gonna bet nobody signs more than. I'm gonna bet most of these deals are days.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna do this thing for me. I've got a friend that owns a sandwich shop in Memphis, and to get Tony Allen to do like a 1 day of shooting a commercial was going to be like $8,000 or something like that. Like, we're going to pay you for this 1 day to make this one commercial, and then we get to air this commercial as much as we want, as long as you're good and have value. I'm going to bet that's how it's going to be. But if I had a big marketing budget, I'd offer these guys like, no, we're going to make you a commercial TV star. You're going to be Baker Mayfield, baby. You'll be on TV around here all the time.
I love it. Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at the transfer portal. We are going to dive a lot more into the transfer portal as the weeks go on, because obviously once name, image, likeness, and whatnot goes through, that'll be in late March, early April, maybe over the summer, possibly.
Well, just also as these guys, like right now, we know Tyler is transferring. So far, we need to talk about when he lands somewhere. How's that going to fit? And that's going to happen as people move throughout the season.
Oh, yeah. All these things are moving pieces. Who knows what's going to happen? The NIL stuff, the college football video game, all of that will be interesting stuff. Let's move into FCS week number 1. And I want to start us off with some, I guess, notes, some interesting tidbits. Most of these games are going to be conference only. You're not going to see a lot of non-conference games. But if you don't pay attention to FCS, you're not going to know the difference, really. So you're going to have some really good matchups, and you're going to have some that are just kind of blah, right? Most of the games that will be on Saturdays, you're not going to be able to get them on television until maybe late March, somewhere around there, because right now everybody has college basketball, and the Saturdays are the biggest times, right?
That's right.
Same with Friday nights. There's a lot of Friday night games. When college basketball, the TV schedule has been taken up by everything.
I'm really shocked that FCS didn't do the Tuesday, Wednesday night deal, Thursday night deal.
And they don't
like Maction.
Well, they are not as worried about the money from it, and I doubt that ESPN was going to offer a bunch anyway. But ESPN already has a bunch of college basketball that they are obligated to air on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays and whatnot. So, I think the football would have been
just so many of those games get canceled. That's the thing. I mean, when, how many times have we had games scheduled for ESPN and they just get canceled?
It hasn't been as many as you would think with college basketball this season, but I mean, who knows? Like, I don't even know what to make of it right now, but that is the reason for it. Is they've always.
If that's the case, then I call all the COVID cancellations a bunch of bullcrap, because we can make all our TV games, but we missed all these other games that weren't on TV.
Well, I mean, teams like Michigan, like obviously when they are shut down for 2 weeks, that gives a ton of leeway.
Well, yeah, now your TV, you can change channels, but like you can adapt.
So
but that doesn't always happen.
Ole Miss and LSU both had college basketball games that were canceled this week, so the SEC just decided to pit them against each other on Wednesday night. So both of them had games on Wednesday. Their opponents couldn't play. They just
played.
So that's the way that's going right now, and they're still, they're finding TV coverage. It is what it is. The TV stuff for this is kind of difficult to find. The best game of the weekend is going to be South Dakota State at Northern Iowa. It is a top 5 matchup, and you're not going to be able to find it on TV unless you were in the local markets. Like, it's almost impossible to find. I thought it might be on ESPN Plus, but it's on a Friday night. All their stuff is done by college basketball. There's ways to watch it, I believe, online. Like, you can go to Northern Iowa's website, you can go to South Dakota State's website, etc. But we'll talk about the game in just a minute. But it's going to be tough to find some of these. ESPN Plus on Sundays is going to be your best bet to find a lot of them. Deion Sanders, his debut is this weekend as Jackson State's head coach, and that is the only game that is on ESPN 3. All of the other ones are on ESPN Plus, and there's like really good matchups, but ESPN 3, which is, free with the app or whatever, that is the highlight game, and they are hosting Edward Waters. They are favored to win that game by like 38 points. It's just absurd. But that's on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN 3. Go ahead and give everybody an idea of the playoff rundown. The FCS playoffs, typically 24 teams. This year, only going to be 16.
Only 16 teams.
Only 16 this
in
year.
A football playoff. That's unsafe, Gary. They shouldn't play that many games. Don't they care about these kids' education?
You would think.
What about the quality of the education? How many days of school are they missing for this?
Well, it goes.
We're going to bring that up.
Weeks.
Does anybody care?
All of them are on the weekend, so I don't think.
We don't care about these kids, though, right?
No, of course not.
Okay.
Not these kids.
Let's
There's
make
other
sure.
ones. 11 automatic qualifiers for the playoffs, and then 5 wild card spots. There are the champions of every conference except for the Ivy League and the SWAC are going to be in the playoffs. The playoff selections are on Sunday, April the 18th. First round is going to be April 24th. The championship game is either May 15th on a Saturday or May 16th on a Sunday. Let's talk about the game that happened last week. Did you get to see any of this game, Chris?
I saw the highlights. Nope, I didn't watch any of the game live, but I did see the highlights.
McNeese State and Tarleton State.
I saw my boy come back. I know that.
Most certainly. Cody Orgeron was absolutely absurd. McNeese State won 40-37. Cody Orgeron had, 3 or 4 touchdowns, ton of rushing yards.
Down by 14 with 4 minutes left to go.
I had bet Tarleton plus 2.5. And I had this game wrapped up, my friend. It was 31-17, 4 minutes left, and they are driving down the field. They score with, 2.5 minutes left, McNeese State does.
Yep.
And they make it 31-24, and I'm paying attention. I'm watching what's going on. Obviously, I had to find a different stream to be able to actually watch what was going on, but thank goodness for a bunch of these different apps that are out there. I was able to find one. 31-24, and McNeese State had to recover an onside kick with just over 2 minutes left, and then they drive down the field at a bunch of incompletions and little runs and using timeouts, et cetera. They scored with 30 seconds left. They kneel out the clock. They get to overtime, get into second overtime. Tarleton State has to kick a field goal, and Cody Orgeron, Coach O's son, runs into the end zone. It was an absolute train wreck of a bet for me because I lost by 3 when I had 2.5. But that is the way that this year has gone for me. So with that said, we will move into the actual games for this week. And Chris, I am pumped. I already brought it up once, but the first game for this weekend.
This game I actually want to try to find, and I will watch some of the prime game.
The South Dakota State Jackrabbits are headed over to the Northern Iowa Panthers. It's number 5 against number 3 in the FCS. Northern Iowa last year was not a top 5 team, but they upset South Dakota State in the playoffs, made it to the round of 8. And, I mean, they got it handed to them pretty good once they got into that round. But South Dakota State was number 7 in the country last year at the point that they met. But they beat them 13-0 last year. Jackrabbit defense, amazing in 2019. They don't get everybody back exactly, but they do get some key pieces back. They got defensive end Reese Winkleman, linebacker Logan Backhouse. Strong defensive front. Remember, this game was 13-10 last year. It's going to be a lot of the same thing. South Dakota State runs the ball a ton. Pierre Strong ran over 1,000 yards last year. He is back this season. Northern Iowa, on the other hand, they are at home in this game. Their defense was a brick wall a season ago. You could not run on them. So that's going to be interesting to see. But they've got linebacker Bryce Flater back, defensive tackle Jared Brinkman. They've got a big-time NFL draft pick style cornerback, Omar Brown. He's being looked at by a lot. He's not eligible to come out yet. That's why he's playing this season, and he's going to play again in the fall. He'll be ready for it next year. But Will McElwain is not the best quarterback in the Missouri Valley, but he is very, very close. And along with that, Isaiah Weston, a really, really good receiver for them. Northern Iowa's got a little bit more of a passing attack than South Dakota State. The line has not come out on this yet. I would imagine South Dakota State is probably going to be favored. They are the more known team. I think Northern Iowa wins the game. The projections have them winning by 1 or 2 points. I think they win this by a field goal. They've got a fantastic field goal kicker. So I'm going to roll with that. Matthew Cook is the place kicker. So I'm rolling with that one. That is the most in-depth that we will get for any of these matchups. Chris, do you want to give out a pick on the game?
Well, I like the Jackrabbits. I think that's the best mascot in sports. I don't know how anybody doesn't smile when they say they're the Jackrabbits. That's incredible. Now, I have a bias here, though.
Oh, really?
Normally, I kind of tend to like, and our Northwestern friends aren't going to like that. I've kind of always kind of liked Iowa schools. I don't know why. I just think that they're really good at football. Like, it's really cold. They just eat nothing but corn and potatoes, and they're just big boys that are really good at pushing people around. And that's kind of what football is, that it's like core, right?
Oh, yes.
And so I've always had a bias to lean towards liking Iowa schools more than others. So
Northern Iowa almost beat Iowa State last season in Ames. I mean, you remember it was one of those very down to the wire. It went to overtime kind of things, and they were close. This is a good football program that they have built over there. Let's move into Saturday. I'm going to talk about the games that you can actually watch on ESPN Plus, right?
The rest of these, I don't know anything about. I'm not even going to pretend to. I know who South Dakota State was. I know who Northern Iowa is.
Interesting things about these games, right? Just very quick. So on Saturday, February 20th, this one's at 2 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN Plus. Western Carolina, the Catamounts, headed over to number 15 Furman, who are the Paladins, right? The projection is Furman winning by 28 or whatever, at 43-15. I mean, it's absurd. That's what the projections across the board are. This should not be a close game, but Furman head coach Clay Hendricks, he was the associate head coach and the offensive line coach at Air Force from 2007 to 2016. Furman, number 7 in the FCS in rushing last season. They returned their quarterback, Darren Granger, and their running back, Devin Wynn, and they are going to be a force this season. They run the same kind of stuff that Troy Calhoun does over at Air Force. They got some big dudes on that offensive line. That is going to be fun to watch them this season because they've made it to the playoffs for a while. They have been winning the Southern Conference. I'm all about Furman. That one is one that you can watch on ESPN Plus on Saturday. Also on Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, you have got, 3 p.m. Eastern time, ESPN Plus, Sam Houston State, number 22 in the country, the Bearcats, and that's with a K, my friend, at Incarnate Word. Now, this one should be a pretty close game.
Damn. Cats with a K, K-A-T?
Bearkats.
God, kill me now. Yeah, I hope these bastards lose.
All right, so they are number 22 in the country. Their head coach, Casey Keeler, is 59-22 at Sam Houston State. They've gone 6-5 and 7-5 the last 2 seasons. Not been great. They're expecting bigger things out of them this season. They've got a big advantage on defense. Incarnate Word was okay last season, but they lost their last 5 in 2019. The projections, the metrics, analytics, whatever, say that Sam Houston State is going to win this game by 6. So if nothing else, it should at least be a competitive football game. I'm excited, I guess, about that one. Is what it is. And then we'll move into Sunday's games. Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, you've got Austin Peay, the Governors, at number 13 in the country.
I know who they are.
There you go. It's right down the street from us, actually.
Yeah, I was about to say, they're local.
They are, Nashville, or right outside Nashville?
Yeah, good, close enough to call them Nashville. Yeah, sure.
They are playing at Tennessee Tech, the Golden Eagles. And
I know where that is and who they are.
There you go. The projection here is Austin Peay winning this game at 35-29, so by 6 points. Austin Peay 11-4 last year. Now, that was under head coach Mark Hudspeth. Remember, Austin Peay opened up the 2020 fall football season against Central Arkansas. So they had the quarterback, Jeremiah Oatsball, that kind of was trending on Twitter for a while. He and his girlfriend were on all the ESPN highlights and whatever else. The other part about Austin Peay, now remember, Mark Hudspeth got fired.
New coach.
Brand new coach. And the new coach is Scotty Walden, who was the interim head coach at Southern Mississippi. So
for like a game and a half.
Exactly.
And is the youngest coach in the history of college football at like
pretty much
24 years old.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I'm curious to see what he's going to be.
There are players on BYU that are like 3 years older than him.
He's an offensive guy. So
it's the only way you get a coaching job like that.
They have done really impressive things at Austin Peay. Remember, this program was indeed dumps. And you know my boy. You know who built that program.
Oh, God.
That would be one Will Healy, my friend, who is now the head coach at Charlotte and has been looked at for some other big-time jobs. Now he's going to have to win more at Charlotte before he does that. But he's a young dude, too. I mean, he's only like 33 or 34. Like, just ridiculous. Both offenses here are pretty good. I don't know what Austin Peay is going to look like with a new head coach. It's their third head coach in, 7 months now, 8 months, whatever it was.
Well, I think this guy's going to be fine unless he leaves for greener pastures, which is what Healy did. So, turning over that many coaches isn't always a terrible thing if they're all leaving for better jobs.
Yeah.
Because when you're an FCS school, like, you can't keep anybody. You can't afford to pay these coaches. They don't make any money.
I'm curious nothing has come out about Mark Hudspeth. Mark Hudspeth was at one point the head coach at Louisiana Lafayette. There was NCAA stuff that went on there, whatever. He went to be a tight ends coach at Mississippi State. Then he gets the Austin Peay head coaching job after Healy leaves. They went 11-4 last year, made the playoffs, had a pretty good run. And then he gets, he didn't get fired per se. He resigned.
Yeah, I'm sure this I'm sure this didn't have anything to do with recruiting, and it didn't have anything to do with winning and losing. This is
something else.
This is probably an internal, possibly Me Too type situation. Don't want to label somebody like that, but you got to think he cussed out the wrong person or said the wrong thing or did something within the walls of the place in which they work.
Yes.
Oh, that's what I got to think. So let me tell you what I like about the FCS. Okay, I like mascots. So I told you I like the Jackrabbits. This is why I always root for them. I hope that they always get into the NCAA tournament because I think that's fun when they do that. Catamount. So I Googled that because I didn't know what that was. So I'm an idiot, and you might know. That's fine.
Oh, go ahead.
It's a medium-sized cat.
Yes.
So how fat does a regular cat have to get? How big does a regular cat have to get to become a catamount?
That's a good question. I
have
no idea.
And then you said the other team that the Catamounts were playing were the Paladins.
Yes.
I didn't know what that was. That first definition was any of the 12 peers of Charlemagne's court. Okay. Charlemagne, the only thing I know about Charlemagne was from National Treasure. So there you go. That they had to find his pipe and his boat. And then, or the other definition is a knight renowned for heroism and chivalry. So we're not just going to say we're the Cougars or we're the Wildcats. We're going to say we're the Catamounts.
The Catamounts and the Paladins.
And we're not going to say we're the Knights or anything of that nature. We're going to be the Paladins. And I'm okay with those. But then when the Bearcats want to spell it with a K, now I'm you took a fictional thing that's not real. Bearcats aren't a real animal. It's weird that there's so many mascots that are called Bearcats, and that's like an imagine. What's funny is no one else has created an imaginary mascot. Like nobody else has taken two animals and merged them together to make a mascot to just create one.
Right? Yeah. Isn't that Napoleon Dynamite? The liger?
Well, a liger's a real thing. It's a breed of a tiger. If you ever watched Tiger King, which I know you did, they had ligers on there. Right. So liger's it's actually a real animal. No, there's no bearcat. There's no animal called a bearcat, whatever. So they took it and said, we're not only going to take this mythical animal that doesn't exist, but we're going to we're going to spell it with a K. We're going to spell it different than Cincinnati or Binghamton. Thanks. Yeah. Binghamton Bearcats. I knew that.
Well, let's move into this next game, and I will.
I thought we were done. I'm sorry. That's the only reason I digressed. I apologize.
This is the last game, and this is the last one of the weekend. This one's on Sunday as well. It's 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, and this actually fits very well into this mascot narrative.
Okay.
This would be the Youngstown State Penguins.
Yeah, I knew them.
Against number 1 North Dakota State Bison. So a penguin and a bison, who would win between those two?
Well,
I think
obvious. You
obviously
can't always go who would win.
right.
I don't do my thinking like that. That's not how it works. But those are at least like two animals. Like bison doesn't. That's a normal mascot animal. Like they're big, they're strong, they're fast, they're kind of majestic.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I get that. Penguins, I think are funny. They're cute. I don't know. I'm okay with that being a mascot, but it's not as cute as a jackrabbit.
So Youngstown State, of course, had who is the Bo Pelini? They had Bo Pelini as their head coach.
Jim Tressel used to be the athletic director. I don't know if he still is or not.
No, I believe that Jim Tressel is the president of that school.
Yeah, he might have got promoted up. Yes, when he left Ohio State, he went to Youngstown State. Youngstown State is like football legend.
Oh yes. Their head coach is, let's see, Doug Phillips.
That's where Bob Stoops thought about going when he retired, if he wanted to get back in football, because all the Stoops brothers are from Youngstown State as well.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So Tressel, obviously there's a lot that goes in here, but I don't know much about Doug Phillips. I do know that, obviously North Dakota State, everybody picks them to win everything every year anyway. What I'm curious about is they lose Trey Lance.
I was going to say, is Lance going to play?
He is not playing.
Yeah, that's smart. He should not be playing.
Absolutely. And they've got several other guys that who was the kid that went to, was it Peppers? That went to LSU, the linebacker.
I don't know.
So they've lost several people off of this team already. However, they are still loaded and they still have an incredible coach, etc. So a lot of people are still expecting them to do fantastic things. The head coach, Doug Phillips, was the running backs coach at Cincinnati before 2 seasons ago, whatever it was. So, he's been at Ohio State as a defensive quality control guy. He was at Bowling Green. He's been at Cincinnati since 2017. He has not been a head coach before, and your first game is going to North Dakota State to play in the Fargo Dome. Not liking the chances there. It's
going to be tough, and
North
Dakota State is supposed to win.
That's the projection, 40-16.
Yeah.
So not terrible. What is that? 24 points.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can get down with it. Of course, like we said, Deion Sanders in his debut with Jackson State. Lots to get excited about this weekend. We will be discussing even more FCS football as the season goes along. Once we actually get our eyes on some of these games, we might actually give out picks. We might talk about whatever. Yep. But lots to discuss because we will actually have football from now until the beginning of May or the middle of May. So something to be excited about. I'm kind of excited about it. We shall see. I'm curious about the product and whether or not we're actually going to be able to watch a ton of it. It looks like, with ESPN Plus, we're moving in that direction. Chris, is there anything else going on that we need to talk about?
No, I don't understand why ESPN has to get all these games. Like, surely CBS's sports network is hurting for content. I'm sure Fox Sports South doesn't have, a million things on FS1 or FS2. Like they've got channels. I just don't understand why one of these schools, can't get picked up a contract by them or just this, or a conference. Yeah. And just say, we'll put you on.
So I know that the game the other night was on Fox Sports Southwest Plus.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
But give it the real channel. Yeah. And this is when, so those guys are probably on Saturdays also booked with basketball because they do cover a lot of basketball, but they could make room for a game, you know, and then the other games go on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. And if you say, well, we don't want to play on those nights, the amount of money these little schools could make being on TV just once a year would change the trajectory of all of those schools.
I agree.
I mean, one Wednesday night TV game on FS1 would be more money than that team's probably ever made ever.
I agree.
In like a calendar year. So
I don't understand all of it. I don't know why they only want to play on weekends. It doesn't make sense to me.
well, I wonder if these other conferences or these TV networks just said, it's not worth it. We're not gonna pay to pick them up. But I just can't be that. I can't think it's going to be that expensive. I mean, their athletic budget, you could change some lives and get some content pretty cheaply.
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree. But as of right now, this is what we got. Now it could change, obviously, as we move along. But this is what we got. We got ESPN Plus, and there's some Fox Sports regional networks and whatnot that aren't on the app. So that is where we're going at the moment, and it kind of sucks. But either way, we are going to go ahead and get out of here, though. Hopefully, all of you have wonderful weeks. Hopefully, you're not all snowed in and iced in and all that. But if you are, we hope you're staying warm. We hope you don't lose power like millions of people across the Southeast have already. We, luckily, have not as of yet. But I do have a working fireplace, and I feel all right about that. So with that said, do us a favor. Go ahead and like the video. Again, make sure that you are subscribed. Share the show out. Tell your friends about it. Jump in the comments. We want to hear your thoughts about the FCS games and, where you get your lines, all that good stuff. Head over to sbrpicks.com/NCAAF. And Chris, if there's nothing else, for sportsbookreview.com, I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
And we will see you again next week.